Welcome back to GBO Takeover. I'm Max Howard, and we got a hefty slate this week. Going to talk about Tennessee against South Carolina, how that game turned out, how it went, how amazing it was to get our revenge. Going to talk about the implications of the bye week we have this week for Tennessee. We're going to talk about the opponents that we are going to have coming up in the weeks after the bye week and how they're actually going to be playing this coming weekend. It is going to be fun. It is going to be one to pay close attention to every single one of the games. And I'm ready for a packed week of college football. If you do not mind, I'm going to put this up on social media real quick and get it shared out to everybody. In the meantime, if you're here, send in some questions and I'll be sure to try and answer them. Let's see here. And I like the thumbnail, but the only bad thing about it is I could not put all of it there. It's supposed to say brought a gun to a cockfight. And when I saw that, I initially was just, I loved it. That is amazing to me. Let's see here. Copy the link. All right. And okay. Posted. All right. I'm going to talk about Tennessee, the upcoming games. Going to focus on the bye week, how we got some players that we need to get back, need to get ready, need to heal up, and about some games that we got after the bye week that are really important to the remainder of the season. We have Keenan Peely, who more than likely is going to be missing after the bye week. But that's totally normal. I mean, he's got a upper body injury. He probably won't be back till November, maybe mid-November. We got Dante Thornton. He was out. He had a pulled hamstring, if I'm not mistaken. He was dealing with it in the preseason. Then he got better, and then 5 games into the season, he's back to kind of nursing it. But Josh Heupel says that he should be back come after the bye week. Joe Milton, he still had a knee brace on against South Carolina. So hopefully that gets healed up. Cooper Mays being back against South Carolina. If you watched the game, you saw the offensive line just put on a clinic. There I saw on Jalen Wright's, it was a 40-yard touchdown run. He had the linemen had 2 double teams, and with those double teams, they were able to work their way into the secondary and pick up the next level, all with just one block. And that created a massive hole for Jalen Wright, and that was what started the game. That put us up 7-0. After the bye week, we got A&M. Then we travel to Alabama, and then we travel to Kentucky, which are all going to be crazy. And then after Kentucky, we got UConn, then Georgia at home, and then Vandy to finish off the season. Um, we got a tough slate coming up, but we get a good look at all these teams this coming weekend. A&M and Alabama, our next two opponents, they play each other. Then our next two after that, teams that should actually put up a good fight, Georgia and Kentucky, they're playing each other. You're going to get probably Georgia at its best this weekend, being at home, going up against the top 25 opponent in Kentucky, who supposed to have a pretty decent run game. Ray Davis came out and ran for 250 something yards. If I'm not mistaken, against Florida. Devin Leary, if I'm not mistaken, that's their quarterback's name. He was supposed to be. People were looking at him and thinking he's going to be the next best thing. And he's just kind of been slow to the scene. He had 60-something passing yards against Florida. And I guess we'll find out more about Devin Leary this weekend against Georgia at home. I recall going down to Tennessee, going down to Georgia last year. And the crowd it definitely was not no Neyland. They had put up on the Jumbotron that it was 130-something decibels. That's almost impossible with their stadium set up. Their stadium is open on one end. It definitely was not no 130-something decibels, but you could tell by the way our offensive line was operating. It threw us for a loop. We weren't ready for it, and it took us out of the game. I'm eager to see how Alabama is going to play in this game against A&M. I'm eager to see how Milroe is able to, if they're going to rely on him to pass the ball. I think I don't think he had 15 pass attempts against Mississippi State this past weekend. Texas A&M, I won't lie I wouldn't be lying if I said Texas A&M is one I'm confused about. They were supposed to be the next best thing this season. Then they go and play Miami, and it was a major letdown for the A&M fans, for the SEC. But they've continued to play consistent these past few games. They've been able to develop some of the schemes, but with their starting quarterback, who I cannot think of his name, he's out. So now you got Max Johnson in, and he's actually playing pretty good. He's playing lights out for a two-man. He started last week's game perfect up until his seventh throw, and it was up to 100 yards, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember who they played. I'm sure I can find it and let you know. Let's see, who did they play? A&M played Arkansas. Okay. I mean, Max Johnson threw for 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, had an interception. But like I said, he started the game off really close to being perfect. That game against Auburn, I guess it was one of those where your starting quarterback gets injured, and now you're just trying to find a way to survive the game, get through it. But they did, and that's who we got next. I guess we'll see this weekend against Bama how well they're actually put together. That game's supposed to be a close one. It's at A&M, so they're giving points for home field advantage, but Alabama is still seen as the favorite. There's a couple toss-up games this weekend. And we'll go over those on Pick'ems later on in the stream. Right now, we're going to talk about the magnitude of these games coming up this week and what they can mean for teams heading on to the latter part of the season. You got Georgia and Kentucky. This game is going to give one team its first loss. They're both heading into it 5-0. Actually, I'll get this screen up here to where you can see the games that I'm going over. Let's see here. All right. So if I could move myself, it'd be great, but I don't know if I can. I don't think I can. So right here, you got Georgia versus Kentucky. Both of them are 5-0. Georgia's been playing all right. They haven't really been playing to the caliber that I think a number one team should play. But they've won every single game. Kentucky, they're playing pretty good football, but the teams that they beat, aside from SEC, is Akron, Eastern Kentucky, and Ball State. I mean, Eastern Kentucky is probably their heaviest competition out of all these. And beating them by 11 here, 30 here, 32 here. I mean, I think these margins should be larger, which especially if we want to compare to Tennessee, the margin should most definitely be larger for Tennessee and Kentucky in these games. So can't hold them to too much there. Vanderbilt, that 17-point game, that's a 3-possession game. So, I mean, they're good. They're not bad. Same with Georgia. I mean, teams, if they've gone up against UT Martin, I mean, they killed them, but in the first half, I think they went into halftime like 14-7 or something like that. Or not set. It was 14-0, but UT Martin had got close to scoring. They went to the red zone plenty of times, and they just could not cap off the drive. Ball State, so they put more points on Ball State and held them to fewer. So in a matchup there, that favors Georgia. Sorry, I'm looking to see if this actually posted and how it's doing. All right. South Carolina was up 14-0, went into half 14-3, and South Carolina did score another point. Held them scoreless in the second half. Actually, since basically the first quarter, they held them scoreless. UAB, again, they started slow. Auburn, they started slow, remained slow, and then said, we got to pick it up. And they went out and they won. I mean, they basically won it on one fourth-quarter drive, and it was their last drive of the game, basically. So this Kentucky-Georgia game, it's going to be a tough one. The implications can completely just change how the SEC East looks. You'll have a team who goes 3-0, and you'll have a team that goes to 2-1. Ruining their perfect record on the season. For Tennessee, we got to play them both, so can't really say I hope both of them lose. But of course, down with number one. I'm an underdog kind of person. So I'm always rooting for the lesser ranked, unless it's Georgia, Florida, Alabama, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Missouri. Unless it's one of those, I'm always rooting for the underdog. So this game is gonna decide a lot, and it's a little early to talk playoffs, but I think that game could really make one team's just shift course, and the way they go about the rest of their season, they're going to have to ramp it up. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that's a bad thing. Sometimes that causes a team to play a little too high one game, and then you come in the next week and you're a little too low. So it could be a good thing for the team that loses, but it could also cause a bad season towards the later parts. Oklahoma, Texas. That's another team that's going to get their first loss. Oklahoma has kind of been slept on. I mean, I personally have only watched maybe a quarter worth of Oklahoma football, and that was against Cincinnati. And they just kind of didn't show up. They won 20-6. So, I mean, they showed up in the second. Sorry, I got a Xbox going on right here. I mean, you can see they were consistent throughout the game, and they were at Cincinnati, so who knows? The crowd could have been a factor. They just couldn't finish off drives. They, as you see right here, 322 passing yards and only one touchdown. They just couldn't finish their drives. Maybe, I mean, this is their only fluke game, really, of the season so far. I mean, they killed Butch Jones and Arkansas State 73-0. I mean, SMU, they held them close. So it looks like it's depending on what Oklahoma you get on the evening. They're going to have to bring it this weekend against Texas. And it's in Dallas. They don't have to worry about being at Texas's place. Texas is a favorite in this game. Texas knocked off Bama earlier in the season. So this game has a lot of implications towards the later part of the season with it. You're going to get a team who has its first loss. If it's Texas who loses, then they'll probably bump down to 5 or 6, and Oklahoma will probably bump up, or Texas will probably go 7. Oklahoma will probably go 6 or 5. And people start questioning the SEC, how powerful it is to get beat by Texas, and then Oklahoma come in and beat Texas because they were at Alabama. So Alabama had it all really lined up in their favor, and their offense just kind of laid down on them this year, and they're still trying to figure that out. Now, as long as they let the quarterback run, I think they'll be pretty good. So that game's got a lot behind it, and it could change some things up for the remainder of the season. You got Maryland versus Ohio State. That's a big game because both teams are undefeated. Now, Maryland, as you see, they're not ranked. Heck, who they've even played? Tosin? What? Tosin? They played Charlotte, Virginia, Michigan State, and Indiana. So their slates, I mean, they're a Big Ten team, so their slate's always going to have some hefty games, but they really don't reach those games until this weekend and then the second half of their schedule. So I think this game favors Ohio State a lot more than Maryland probably wants to say. I mean, the odds makers got it almost 20 points in Ohio State's favor. They're at Ohio State. So I think that one just goes to Ohio State. If it doesn't, then I don't see how Ohio State can win out still and make it to the playoffs if you're going to get put down by Maryland. Now, if Maryland goes and runs their table, beats everybody, then at that same point, I don't think Ohio State's even going to be a question because you're now going to have Maryland and either Ohio State and probably Michigan. I mean, or no, actually, it'll probably be Iowa because I see Iowa beating Wisconsin, Minnesota, Purdue. I see them beating all those teams. So it'll probably be, Penn State. So it's probably going to be Penn State winning that if Maryland were to win, because I don't see Maryland running the table. They got 3 games against top 10 opponents. And I see Ohio State winning this game and continuing on their road to glory this season. Missouri and LSU, this game is going to be probably no defense. LSU's defense has not, I don't know if they ever got on the bus to any of their games. Heck, at home, I think they just kind of sat on the couch instead of even going to the field because they've just not been there. They've given up, like, how many points they got given up on per game? They have given up 31 points per game, and that's for 107th in the country. So they're going up against they went up against Florida State, Grambling, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Ole Miss. Arkansas, they beat by 3 points, who Texas A&M beat by, it was 2 possessions. Mississippi State, they handled due diligently. Grambling did what they were supposed to. I mean, that game isn't a question. That Ole Miss game came down to who had the ball last. Sometimes that happens, and that's when you ask your defense to play. And like I said, they didn't show up, so you can't expect too much. And what your expectations were is probably what occurred. Against Missouri, I mean, Missouri's been balling. They are 5-0. They beat Kansas State, who was a ranked opponent at the time. I don't want to go too far into the game itself because still got to go over pick'ems later. But, I mean, Missouri's played South Dakota, which they barely beat, MTSU, which they barely beat, Kansas State, which they barely beat, Memphis, which they beat by 1 possession, 1 touchdown, and Vanderbilt, who they beat by 17, so 3-possession game. So unless they're like you're rolling a ball down a hill and it's gradually picking up momentum, if that's how you're going to be as a Missouri team, then this is the week to test the momentum. I just think it leans in LSU's favor. I think they score more. If it becomes a boat race, I mean, Missouri's given up 20.8 points a game. So, I mean, for LSU, I think LSU will probably put 35 on them. On a bad day, I think they'll put 35 on them. So, I mean, that's 3 points more than Missouri has given or is scoring average on the season. I think 35 does it for LSU, and I think Missouri says our loss was bound to happen because it's Missouri. You don't expect too much out of them. To me, it's a how in the world are they in this position in the first place? And so I think that their first loss is bound to happen this weekend. So you're going to lose. You can possibly lose 1, 2, 3, 4 undefeateds this weekend. Actually, 5 because you got the Marshall, North Carolina State game, which none of these to me are really that big. I mean, right here, you got number 13 Washington State versus UCLA at UCLA, and their UCLA is favored. UCLA went into Utah and did really nothing. I mean, they put up 7 points, and they needed 14 to even go into overtime, and they put up 7 points. I mean, I don't see them winning. I don't see a big enough crowd showing up to a California team game unless it's USC. I don't think they get crowd in their favor. I think it's just going to be Washington State all the way. And that line, I think, is just off. I'm going to need water. So just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. Sorry about that. All this talking's done. Got my mouth dry. Alabama, A&M. You got 2 one-loss SEC teams with both teams having their loss coming out of conference. That is probably the best situation they could be in for the season. They don't have to worry about this giving them their second loss in SEC play, and they're able to just kind of come to play. They don't have to worry too much. Now, I do think whatever team picks up this loss, I think that team is no longer going to be in the SEC West race. As a diehard Tennessee fan I am, of course, I'm going to vote against Alabama by heart. But for Tennessee playing A&M after the bye week, I got to say I want Bama to win. I think this one is hard. I mean, it's not necessarily about who I want to win. I mean, looking at it, I really think A&M is going to pull it out. They're at A&M. Their quarterback's been on fire, and I think A&M pulls it out this weekend. They've both had a hefty schedule, team wise. I mean, Alabama's played Texas. They're now playing A&M, who's not ranked, and then Bama's played other SEC opponents. A&M, you played Miami. You didn't show up for Miami. Yeah. Who else have they played? Auburn, who you beat by 3 possessions. And one of those possessions would have been taken away, more than likely, but you gave up a turnover. You beat Arkansas by 12. So 2-possession game. Beat New Mexico pretty handedly. And UNL more pretty handily. But Miami basically just put the foot on your throat and said, all right, you're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything. And you're not putting points on us after you got to a certain point. And you lost by 2 possessions. So that one, this game is going to be a tough one. It's definitely a pick 'em for sure. I mean, the line is 2.5 or 2 in Alabama's favor. So, and they don't have this game as a high scoring game. I mean, they have it in the 20s. Both teams, Alabama will score 24 and A&M will score 22 is their prediction. I mean, yeah, it'll be a good game. Be one that I'm definitely watching this weekend. This one, Syracuse and North Carolina, is one that I don't think anybody's really talking about because Syracuse got beat last week by Clemson. And it's at North Carolina, so I don't think it's really a big game. I mean, I don't think it's a toss-up game. I think North Carolina is going to win it. I think they're going to escape having their first loss. And that one's going to be North Carolina. I feel it. And it should be, honestly. Purdue and Iowa, we'll go over that one in the pick'ems. I think that's pretty much our slate for big games this weekend. Ole Miss and Arkansas, that should be Ole Miss. I mean, I forgot Notre Dame and Louisville. This game, I mean, Louisville can get their first loss, so we can lose probably 6 undefeated teams this weekend. I think one of them or 2 of them are for certain, 2 of them are for certain, and the other ones are depending on how they show up. It's at Louisville. Notre Dame's coming off of a win against Duke, which happened in the last quarter, in the last few minutes, like last 5 minutes of the game. So, I mean, it's supposed to be, I think it's going to be a good game. Louisville and Duke haven't played, so I don't know the true matchup between them, but I think it's going to be a close one. The spread, I think, is like 9 points or 6.5. I think it's going to be close for that. I think it's going to be a field goal game, and I think that'll be just how it goes. And yeah, I mean, those are the top games that have a lot of implications for the remainder of this season that are going to be happening this weekend. Let me just look at something real quick. Okay. So let's go over the Tennessee-South Carolina game. This game had so much behind it. And Josh Heupel does what Josh Heupel does, and he wanted to make sure that the media did not know that his team wanted this to be a revenge game. He kept putting it off as if it's another week, another game, no reason to even worry about it. Just go out and play. And, I mean, they definitely went out and played. But everybody knew it was a revenge game, and it was get back season. I mean, it was time to get your get back, and they got their get back. Moves Tennessee to 1-1 in conference play. That game against Florida, coming back to it. That one just drives me up the wall. Let's see here. So I want to find the full-on stats of this game. Team stats. Okay. So 24 first downs to South Carolina's 11. You're supposed to win at that point. I mean, we came out and we passed for 239 and ran for 238. 1 yard short of being even passing and rushing. That is phenomenal. I could not have asked for a better run game out of Tennessee. I enjoyed watching all three of our running backs be able to go in, get what they wanted run-wise, and get a touchdown. They all ate. Jalen Wright, of course, is Jalen Wright. He's running back number one, and he's going to show you why he's running back number one. Joe Milton, those 2 interceptions, I think that those interceptions are necessary. I think they will make Joe Milton understand that you have to be more vigilant of the coverage downfield, and you have to be in more control. Just going up to the line of scrimmage, thinking you know what's going on, making your checks, but not making all of them is going to get you hurt every single time. And what did it do? He lines up, and you got a safety dead middle of the field, and you got corner or a safety over here and a safety over here, and they're playing close to the line, and they back up, and they're playing more of a zone man type deal, playing cover 3. And when they back up, that the safety in the middle just stays. I mean, he watches Joe eye his target, and he saw that his target was going middle of the field, and he didn't move. He didn't make a single move until the ball was thrown. He ran up and got it, and that was interception number 1. And the second one by Joe, I think you just got to put more air under it. I mean, you had 10 yards worth of end zone to work with, and you tried throwing it to the goal line, which that's never been Joe Milton's thing. I mean, you've never been able to sit here and say, man, Joe Milton can put touch on a ball and get it where he wants it every time. He just can't. And that's fine. But you want to see it. I mean, I want Milton to succeed. I want him to go be a top draft pick. I want him to do the best. And I think the amount of hype that his arm got this offseason for being a bazooka kind of took some of the attention away from, hey, how accurate are you with that hefty arm? And, I mean, he threw for 239 yards, 21 completions. So I'm not upset with him. I'm not upset with our pass game. We were just spoiled last year with everything that occurred last year, and we're just wanting it to occur again. We just want to see our team do the same things without the same people. I was overwhelmed by our defense. Our defense showed up and showed out. 6 sacks on Rattler. James Pierce himself had 2. And they just balled out. I mean, held Spencer Rattler, who going into this game was playing dang near perfect in every single first quarter he played in. And we locked him up. And James Pierce won't get credit for this on the box score, but on tape, when Spencer Rattler threw his interception, James Pierce was around. He rushed off the edge and got an arm on Rattler as Rattler releases the ball, and he pressured him. I mean, it was a downright pressure. Spencer Rattler was not expecting the pressure, overthrows the receiver by about 4 feet, and you have Kamal Hadden, who I, on a different talk show, went on and said, I think Kamal Hadden is going to ball out this game. And honestly, I've been so happy with Kamal Hadden this season. Last season, he would jaw with anybody, even after a 10-yard reception by his own man. And he would jaw. And it's like, dude, just go play football. And that's what he's doing. He came to play football this season. He is putting up wonderful numbers. I mean, Kamal Hadden on Pro Football Focus is listed, I think, as the #1 cornerback right now. He has, I think, 8 targets, which is 4th in the SEC. He has 6 pass deflections, which is 2nd SEC, or no, 1st SEC and then 2nd in the nation. He has a lot of tackles, except for the one at Florida where he forgot to wrap the dude up when he went to tackle him, so he just shoulder checked him. But aside from that Florida game, this Tennessee team, you're saying, okay, I mean, they're a little different from last season, but they came to play this year. And that Florida game just makes you do a double take, and you're set there like, what? If y'all had to play against Florida like you did against South Carolina, by all means, we're 5-0 going into a bye week. But that's part of it. Xavier Legette, the #1 receiver that's available for them right now or at the time, we held him to, let's see here. Xavier Legette. We held him to 50 receiving yards. And aside from, and if it did not count the fake punt where the punter threw to Legette for a 32-yarder, he would only have 18 yards on the game. I mean, this is a guy who's averaging 130 yards per game, and our defense held him to 50. That I was not expecting. I questioned if we were going to be able to contain him. And we did. And that is phenomenal. I am so excited for that. And I'm ready for this defense to just come and play every single game like they did. If they come and play like they did against Carolina every single game, we won't have to worry. As long as our offense continues to operate at a mediocre pace, at efficiency, then we should be fine. I mean, this Tennessee team they're not bad. It's a different scheme to last season. Last season, we're more on passing the ball, letting it fly, throw it up, let your receiver go catch it, and just putting it on a dot, really. I mean, Hooker, my favorite play from Hooker was against LSU. and it was from the 50-yard line. And I'm trying to I think it was Jalen Hyatt. He runs basically a go route. I think they crossed at off the snap. And he basically runs a go route, and Hooker just places it perfectly in his hands. And it's like that that to me is why he should have won the Heisman, or at least even been invited. That injury to him sucks. It ruined basically a whole year for him. I mean, not ruin. I mean, it allows for a lot of personal growth, and that one hurt, seeing him get hurt, and then the fact that we gave up that South Carolina game like we did last season. But that's okay. We're now in next season. I think we can win the East as long as we play like we played against Carolina. I don't think the way we played against Carolina is the best football we can play. By no means. I don't think that was our ceiling for this season. I think there's still so much more that we can do. And once we put together a game, an entire game, I mean, do it again. Basically, that's all I can say. Now I'm gonna go over the pick'em games for the week. For those of you watching that are in pick'em's group that I'm in, these are not my legitimate picks. This is a burner, basically. So these may or may not be my actual picks. The Oklahoma-Texas game, this one, again, I think Texas wins it just from what they've shown this season. I mean, they've shown resilience against Bama, and they've just been able to show up almost every single game except for, I think, their game against Rice. I think their game against Rice, they just kind of tried to overlook the team, and that's the only time they didn't look like a top 5 team. My computer will load. I'll show it to you. So we got Kansas State and Oklahoma State kicking off now. That'll be a good one, I think. Where's this Texas game? I done passed it. Yeah. I mean, this is the only time in Wyoming were the only times that they didn't look like a top 5 team. And that's just, this Texas team don't score much. The most they've scored is 40. That's against Kansas. So, a top 25 opponent, and they put 40 on them. Yeah. I think Texas has the backbone to go into this game and just withstand whatever Oklahoma throws at them. Oklahoma's just not shown to me that they should win this game. So I got Texas. LSU and Missouri, I just think LSU wins it just because they put up more points, and Missouri does not put up a lot of points. I actually don't know much about Missouri's defense, but I will say I think that they will hold LSU lower than their average, but I still just think LSU wins it by 5 points. I think it'll be a 5-point game. NC State and Marshall. This one, I have no clue. I haven't watched. The only time I watched North Carolina State was when they played Notre Dame, and I watched it for about 5 minutes. Okay, well, Kansas State's already punted the ball back to Oklahoma State. So we got the Marshall game. It's down here somewhere. I didn't pass it. I know I did. It's 6.5-point favorite. of North Carolina State, and they're at North Carolina State. And I mean, let's see here. Who has Marshall played? Marshall's played Virginia Tech, and really that's it. Virginia Tech, how are they this year? Oh, 1-3. Okay. Yeah. What's North Carolina State look like? That's not what I wanted, but North Carolina State's lost to Notre Dame and Louisville, where they almost beat Louisville. And they barely beat Virginia, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I do remember that. So, I mean, this will be a closer game than I think people want to admit. And I'm going to go with Marshall for the upset. I'm going to. Washington State, UCLA, we went over that one. That I just think Washington State just pummels them. I just don't see it being anything other than UCLA getting not enough points and just not really showing up. Alabama, Texas A&M Bowl. We got A&M. I think A&M win, and I think they pull the upset. I think home field advantage just kicks Alabama in the face. They don't find their pass game any more than they haven't already, and their run game does not serve them as much as they need to. Actually, I want to see what A&M's average yards per game running is, like defensive wise. It's down here. They give up. Don't really know where to find it, if I'm being honest. Right here. No, that's definitely not. Unless it is. Then okay, team. Sorry, I usually just go off the top of my head. And if I need something, then I guess I'll just look it up on here. Defense. Where's defense? Like, where's defense? Rushing. Do I need to change it or rushing attempts, rushing yards? What the heck? This does not help me at all. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe it's in the, if I look at their matchup. Okay, here. Rushing yards allowed per game. A&M only gives up 96 rushing yards. I mean, Alabama has pretty good rushing and passing numbers, but I just don't think that they find it. I think it'll be too tough at Kyle Field. I think that 12th man just takes over, and you see Alabama give it up for their second loss on the season, first SEC loss. Iowa and Purdue, they got Iowa as only a 2.5-point favorite at home, and I think that's just due to Purdue's way of being able to upset and doing it over and over. I just think Iowa wins it. I don't really see Purdue doing much. Actually, I do wonder is Cade McNamara, did he get hurt? Did he get hurt? Sorry, Does it tell you about injured? No. Okay. Well, let's see here. Gabe McNamara. I mean, he's active, but oh. Oh. Well, never mind. ACL. Yeah, he's not playing. That sucks. So who's QB2? Tommy Paholski? Is that QB2? Well, how did Paholski do when he came in for against Michigan? Oh, okay, so he didn't play. D Hill went 11 for 27. Oh, Deacon. Okay, yeah. So this is probably why they have this game at a possible upset. Let's see. How's Iowa's rushing? How does it look? Not good. Not good. Okay. Well, Purdue gives up a lot of yards in the air, and they give up more yards than you gain ground wise. So I still just think that this is in Iowa's favor by all means. Texas State and Louisiana, I have no clue. TCU, Iowa State. I picked TCU twice this year, and they've let me down. So I'm going Iowa State. Fresno State, I think, should. Excuse me. I think Iowa State or Fresno State should win this one. Sorry, I should have muted myself. I don't know if I have that set up to where I can just yet, but I think Fresno State wins that. I'm going to go with Louisville to upset and Texas State and Louisiana. Let's see here. We're probably going to go a little bit over an hour on this one. I want to try and keep it within the hour range. So it's not too hard of a watch if you sit down and try and watch it. Hey, where's this game at? Not that. Not that. Wait, what? It's Louisiana. Where's it at? There it is. Oh my gosh, this is a close one. A 2-point game in the spread. Oh, Texas State gives up 430 yards. They don't have defense. They don't have any defense. Oh, well, I'm just going to go Texas State then. And then how many points do I think will be scored in Oklahoma, Texas? 47. Yep. 47. So those are my picks for the week. I'm not too sold on all of them, especially not the Texas, Bama, the LSU, Missouri. This one I am. I think it should be Texas. This one is a throw-up game. So, I mean, I'll change the points at some point, but I mean, I think they're all correct because, I wouldn't pick them for that. So it's going to be a hefty week. I'm ready to watch some football. Hope you guys are ready to watch football. I'll probably make a video like I did this past week and post it sometime during the week. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope y'all have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. And go Big Orange. Let's go.